Bismillah walhamdulillah wa tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So winter has officially showed up here in Southern California. Alhamdulillah, after all of the fires, we've now had rain at the lower elevations. And where I live, it's, I don't know, probably about 1,000 feet above sea level. But I live in close proximity to Mount Baldy and to Cucamonga Peak, which the latter is, I think, a little above 8,000 feet. And the former is I think just above 10,000 feet. And so, wow. Probably can't really see that, but that is, mashallah. There's nothing like living here, I'll say that. But for a nation that supposedly believes in God, this is another sign that they are waraddallin, especially the Christian part of it. They have definitely gone astray because they don't seem to believe in God with any creedal sense. And by creed, I don't just mean that, they would probably counter, well, we believe in God. We believe God is the creator and God is this or that. You also believe God is a man while simultaneously having a kid, but being transcendent. We won't go down that road. But what I mean by not having like a creed, where like in Islam, we believe that Allah Ta'ala is in charge of everything. We believe that, and as a consequence of Allah being in charge, that things happen according to His dictate, His will, which will inevitably involve some things that will be pleasing to us and some things that won't. That everybody will get some, and everybody will have something taken away. And so, for us as Muslims, even as Muslims who are Americans, that's what I'm saying. I can look at what's happening, and not necessarily be like, down with America. And that doesn't mean that I don't have that sentiment with certain aspects of the American enterprise. Like, down with American militarism and subjugation kind of in general. But at the same time, still have a sense of filial attachment to my home. And so it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing or all. And I think this is the part that will be a challenge for some American Muslims as we relate to our fellow Muslims who have family that come from abroad. Perhaps they themselves come abroad and are living in locations that are directly affected by said techno-feudalism and these other things. So I think that it'll be a challenge for us to kind of negotiate that. These won't be the first. This is not the first time in the history of the Ummah where Muslims of different backgrounds will, have to do that. But hang with me. I'm going to try to get a shot here of the mountains. It's just absolutely spectacular. And I want to see if I can get a quick shot of it without being run over and killed, of course. A little bit nuts, but sometimes you got to be a little bit nuts. All right, well, hopefully those shots come out okay. Oof, man. So beautiful. Amazing. Got the fog, the snow, everything. America seems to be in complete denial of the fact that everything has a shelf life. I know a lot of Muslims in particular are very fearful of, what does a Trump presidency, what will it mean for Muslims, what will the consequences be? And I'm not saying that some of those concerns are entirely unwarranted. That being said, I think that we should not panic, but we should be wary, because it seems that increasingly as this country heads towards that inevitable decline, it also becomes more in denial of that reality, and so as a result becomes desperate. That's my concern, is that this country seems to be acting with a great degree of desperation, and that's what I'm concerned with. The wrong people at the helm. If you're going to go through a decline, and the decline is inevitable, okay, you can accept that. But to go through a decline and be in denial of it, and instead of pumping the brakes as you approach the cliff, jam on the accelerator, that is very concerning. Particularly as this country is further and further and further under the control and the auspices of Zionism, Israel, and our resources are allocated to that end. And somehow the people in this country that feel that a reckless abandonment of all good judgment to support Israel, even at our own detriment and cost,
You can vote red, you can vote blue, and you can have whichever bankrupt government you like. Well, a bankrupt government can't do much.
Hey, yo, Gary, you kiss your mother with that mouth?
It's the X factor. Listen, if your government has no resources, it doesn't matter who's in charge.
Really, man?
Resources, the only way to get them back is taxation. There is a massively increased inequality, and that inequality is not going to reduce. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So there is a hole in the bottom of the boat, and our resources are sinking out of it. And if you do not stop the rich from getting richer and richer and richer, they will gradually outbid you for everything you need one at a time.
Today's guest used to be a trader in 2011.
So this is the guy I was talking about, right? Gary Stevenson.
Since then, he's moved.
He's got a bit of a potty mouth. And the next time I talk to Gary, I might let him know. But nonetheless, I like his analysis, so see what he says.
And the last time we spoke, he made a bunch of predictions about house prices, the economy, inflation, and pretty much all of them were correct. But given right now, in January 2025, there is much talk of a financial crisis and growing troubles for the Labour government, we thought it was the perfect moment to get today's guest back on the show. Gary Stevenson, welcome to Downstream.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you back on. Since we last spoke,
Man,
your
those
book, The Trading
pauses, dramatic.
has gone stratospheric. This is the paperback edition. When's it out?
30th of January. If I'm totally honest,
What's interesting about Gary, just as an anecdote, he talks about where he grew up, and I've never been to the UK, so I'm not intimately familiar with like the geography of the UK. But he grew up in London, and if I'm not mistaken, East London, or apparently some part of London, which was a bit more downtrodden, lower economic class. And so he actually grew up going to school with a lot of Muslims. So he's actually kind of familiar with, I wouldn't say if he's familiar with Islam per se, he might be. I mean, he seems like a pretty smart guy, but he's certainly familiar with Muslims. And so it's interesting to see him kind of talk and mention that in the book. And also it's an interesting, which, you know, I'm sure is not like a news flash, but I think it also illustrates the difference between Muslims in America, particularly those of an immigrant background, who tend to be solidly middle, if not arcing towards upper middle class. Whereas in the UK, it's quite the opposite. They're actually more like working class, lower economic, social strata. So that's just an interesting difference.
No pressure on the book, because I think the book is good, and for me, that's all you can do.
Language.
I'm in the fortunate position I don't need to make money off the book. So like, if the book is good in my opinion. If it sells, that's great. What I feel pressure about is the political work and the political situation, because you know, things are growing really quickly now. Like my socials are growing really quickly, and they're big now, right? And I get stopped in the street, and people say to me, you know, we're counting on you. Some old lady stopped me the other day. She's like, "You're Gary, aren't you?" This is gonna sound like I'm just like being a dick. This is what she said. I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "You're gonna save us, aren't you?" That's what she said. And it's a lot, right? It's a lot. Like this.
I kind of like this aspect of him.
Like we grew YouTube.
I like the fact that he is consciously aware of the consequences of popularity. So he talks about this old lady recognizing him in the street, which is, you know, if you have an old lady that recognizes you from, you know, social media, then, you know, you really must be, you know, making some kind of impact. You're definitely, you know, pretty popular. And how she says, "Oh, you know, you're going to save us," and then how he's, you know, and he's spoken before, like how he's very uncomfortable of being thrust into that position, which economics and other things aside, I think is actually laudable. Even within our own sort of Muslim social media sphere, you know, we see how some people have succumbed to and gotten eaten up by that social media popularity.
Like I was saying before, I struggle to turn off, and this is going back to my trading days, right? So if you were to look at a trader, I do a lot of language study. I study Japanese, not just Japanese. I study a lot of languages, but Japanese is the main one at the moment. And I think that's
すごいな、ガリーさん。すごいな。日本語を話すね。
it's giving your brain something to do. Though.
素晴らしい。
If I fuck this up, then fucking economy's end up. So that's what I tried to do. Yeah.
What are the languages? Japanese.
You know, and this Japanese, I started Japanese because, as you've read the book, so you'll know, I got transferred to Japan when I was 25, and it was a period of my life where.
Pretty cool. So I think I do remember something in the book about Gary talking about studying Japanese. So perhaps that's also why I kind of like and relate to him, at least to his story. Because when I was young, much younger than 25 though, and without going to Japan, I taught myself Japanese as a kid and became completely obsessed with everything Japanese. And still, inshallah, I hope one day to make it to Japan.
Basically, I tried to quit my job, and And my response to that was like, well, in that case, I'm going to do it in Japanese then.
Language.
I'm not going to let you make this hell for me. So I was going to the trading floor with my Japanese textbooks and studying kanji, which is Japanese Chinese characters, studying Japanese every day. It became like an oasis of peace.
That's interesting. So I think I probably had and even continue to have a certain kind of similar disposition or relationship to studying language in particular, and that it is kind of like an oasis. I love it. I know some people, they find language to be boring, especially when you have to sit there and do drills, and you know, I love it. So Subarashi Gary-san.
If only we could all relax in, you know, such productive ways, huh?
You know, maybe Gary would like to sit in on my the Arabic reader class, and then he could give us some tips on what to trade.
French, Portuguese, okay. I've done German, I've done Arabic, I've done a bit Chinese. Like that shows you the situation of my mental health, probably. The number of languages that I've been
it's getting
studying.
really bad now.
Yeah.
And Japanese, tell me a little bit, can you do like a sales pitch in Japanese for trading game? Come on.
Yosh, you
Oh,
go.
Gary Stevenson, you have a book? Okay, what's it about?
なんか小説みたいな自伝です。僕のなんか現金の昔の仕事すごく成功していた。I think that's enough. Yeah, it's just
The last time we spoke was right at the
Jozu desu ne, Gary-san.
purchasing of residential property.
So yeah, check out the rest of the video. I'll put both up. I'll put up the video from yesterday, or the one that I referenced yesterday in the video, and then I'll put this one in the description. So check this out and let me know what you think. Ooh wee, boy, we getting man, these people out here are blasted. So inshallah, see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.
Divergence of price between houses and stocks, for example, it's not really sustainable, because then you get a situation where suddenly housing is much cheaper and from the perspective of a rich person provides a better yield,